Welcome. I wanted to take about 5 minutes here to tell you about how I implemented a flipped classroom with my grade 9 academic math class. First thing you might ask is, what is a flipped classroom? Well, in a traditional math class, you would start off with a lesson or a lecture where you would deliver the content to the students. Then you would give them some practice problems that they can work on where they would get a little bit of support for you. And then you would finally give them some independent practice, basically homework that they would work on outside of class time. Problem with this model is that it's very, very easy for the students to listen to you give a lecture. It's very, very hard for them to apply the concepts independently. What a flipped math classroom tries to do is do this in the opposite order. Students watch the lesson at home, where the easy work gets done outside of class, whereas all of the practice work, where they're likely to need a lot of support from the teacher, gets done in class time. So in our classroom, the guided practice is basically questions out of the learning guide, which takes them through the questions step by step. In independent practice, if they're still struggling, they can get guidance from the teacher if needed. Finally, at the end of the day, they can go home and watch the lesson to prepare for the next topic. How did I do this? Well, last semester, when I was teaching grade 9, I gave all of my lessons on the Smartboard, recorded them using a program called Smart Recorder. I had an audio headset here that I used to record the audio. These were then uploaded to YouTube, and then from YouTube they were embedded into D2L. So if a student logs into D2L and they go into a particular module for a unit, they'll see a list of pages corresponding to all of the topics in that unit. If they go to an individual page, they can access the video recording of the lesson. They can also go to see some links for some practice questions, and they can download a page that is essentially the skeleton for the notes that they should be taking while they are watching the lesson. These pages are also photocopied and handed out to them with their learning guides at the start of each unit. Most students opt to skip going through D2L and jump right to YouTube. YouTube allows you a very easy way to maximize the video and watch it full screen. It also lets me organize all of the lessons into one big long playlist, so it's easier for the students to go from one lesson to the next. And YouTube tends to look a little bit better on small screens, such as smartphones or iPads. What does it look like in the classroom? Well, if you come into my classroom, you'll see some students working out of the textbook, but also a lot of students working on Chromebooks here, watching lessons and taking notes. You'll see some students watching lessons on smartphones even, or possibly using your smartphone as a graphing calculator to carry out a calculation. Other students are working out of the learning guide. Some students are writing tests. There's a lot of different things going on. Some other students could be collaborating to answer a question. What does the classroom tend to sound like? Pretty much like that. It's pretty quiet most of the time because all of the students are, for the most part, working independently. Some pros and cons of this. Well, the pro for me is I spend a lot more time helping students who actually need help and conferencing with students one-on-one, things that I didn't find I had a lot of time for when I was teaching lessons a couple of times a week. In theory, students never miss a lesson, and they never sit through a lesson that they aren't ready for. And this is a big issue in math. Our lessons tend to be sequential, and you want the students to have practiced the concepts from the previous lesson before they move on to the next one. It supports self-pacing because the students can access the lessons whenever they want to, promotes student responsibility because it's up to them to go and watch the lesson so they'll be ready, and basic self-direction. Students have access to a lot of resources in this classroom. They have the online lessons, they have the learning guide, they have the textbook, they have me that they can ask questions of, and it's up to them to decide which of these resources is going to work best for them if they're encountering a particular problem. Some of the cons. Some students have difficulty navigating all of these multiple resources. They're never entirely sure what they should be doing right then, or should they be watching an online lesson, should they be working out of the learning guide. Most students learn that. Some have difficulty with it. The biggest issue, though, is that the current setup has few opportunities for student collaboration. Basically, the students are working independently. So the way I'd like to fix this is to add some activities into the learning guide, which would encourage students to collaborate on a group, either solving problems together or possibly conducting an investigation together. These would be planned group activities that would encourage the students to talk about math with one another. That's pretty much the end of my 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop there. If you have any questions, you can ask them at the staff meeting.